Jerusalem is a backwater town, and if it weren't for the temple and the connection of three religions to that area, it'd be like Wayne.
Wayne or Outwayne?
Outwayne.
Out Jerusalem.
Outwayne. Because Tel Aviv is where it all happens. Tel Aviv is what modern Israel is. All right. We'll start on page 68. It's a beautiful morning here. It's a little drizzly, but that doesn't stop us. It is a Shabbat morning. We are on page 68 with a little bit of gratitude. Modeh ani. Modeh ani lefanecha melech ha'ed v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha melech ha'ed v'kayam. Shehechezarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. Modeh ani lefanecha melech ha'ed v'kayam. Page 74, a little bit of Matovu. Matovu, 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 Ohalecha Yaakov. Mishkanotecha Yisrael, Mishkanotecha Yisrael, Va'ani berov chastecha, Ahavo veitecha, Eheshtachaveh, El heichal kodshecha, Be'iratecha, El heichal kodshecha, Be'iratecha. Adonai ahavti mon beitecha, Mekom mishkan kavodecha, Va'ani eshtachaveh Be'efra'ah, Evrecha lifnei Adonai osi, Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai. Ehit rahatzon, Elohim, berov chastecha, aneni be'emet ishecha. Page 76, Asher Yatzar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah. Uvarav nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim, galui v'yadu lifnei chisei chavodecha, she'im yipatech echad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, אי אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. Page 80 and following, please rise. Birkot HaShachar, the morning blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan l'sechli bina l'habchin beinu u'layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, pokeach ivreim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, roch haaretz ha'mayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamechil mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, malbish agumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, anoten laif koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamavir shena me'inai. Numa me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, shasani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, ozer Yisrael b'gvoraha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. You may be seated. Page 88 at the top. Elu devarim. Elu devarim she'en lehem shi'ur, shadam ochel pirutehem ba'olam hazeh, והקרן קיימת לא לעולם הבא. ואלו הן כיבוד אב ואם וגמילות חסדים והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים והכנסת כלה ולוויית המת ועיון תפילה והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. Pages 90 and 92, Kaddish D'Rabbanan. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah, v'alma divrach yiruteh, v'yamlik malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala b'zman kariv v'yivru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam alamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shmei v'kudsha p'richu, le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, tamiram v'alma v'yimru, amen. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Tamidehon, v'al kol Tamidehon, v'al kol ma'an daskim v'oraita, di v'yatra hadin v'di v'chol atar v'atar. Yehei lahon l'chon shlama rabba, pina v'chista v'rachamin, V'chayin arichin u'mezinei v'chaya for kanami kadam v'hon v'ishmaya v'yara v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim tovim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu brachamav ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru, amen. We're moving out of Birkot HaShachar, the morning blessings, into Pesukei D'Zimra. The blessings are longer, less about the individual, more about our relationship with the Creator. Top of page 94, Baruch She'amar. Baruch She'amar b'haya ha'olam. Baruch Osef Reshit.
Baruch Omer v'Yosef.
Baruch Gozer Mekayim.
Baruch Merachem el ha'aretz.
Baruch Merachem al Habriot.
Baruch Mesholem Mechol Tov L'Areya.
Baruch Chailad V'Kayam L'Netzach.
Baruch Le'el Masir
Baruch
Baruch Shemo.
Shemo. 3 lines down, 3 lines from the bottom in the English paragraph, let's read together. With songs of praise, we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign who is glorified through praise. Baruch atah Adonai, melech me'ulal v'tishbachot. Page 96, some verses from Psalm 92, the psalm designated for Shabbat. Mizmor shir liyom hashabat, tov lehodot l'Adonai, uzamer l'shimcha elyon, lehagid b'boker chastecha, ve'emunatecha b'leilot, alei asur v'alei navel, alei higayom b'chinur, alei asur v'alei navel, alei higayom b'chinur. Ki samachtani Adonai folecha, u'maseh yadecha aranehi, ma gadlu masech Adonai, ma'od ameku b'machshavotecha, im bar ish ba'ar lo yedal, chasil lo yavin et zod, tzadik katamahar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yiskeh, shetunim b'beit Adonai, b'chatzro Eloheinu yafrihu. Ojenuhu b'seiva, b'shenim v'ra'ananim, yihiyu lehagid, ki yashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avlatabo. Pages 97 to 98. Ashrei. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yehalelu chasela. Tehillah David, aromimcha lahai hamelech, v'avarcha shimcha li'olam va'ed. Gadol Adonai Lameod, v'ligdulato ein cheker. Hadar kavod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha. Zecher rav tucha yaviu, v'tzikatecha yiranenu. Kavod Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Kevod malchutecha yomeru, ugvaratecha yedaberu. Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador. Einei chol elecha yisaberu, v'yata noten lehem et okolam b'ito. Tzadik Adonai b'chol drachav, v'chasid b'chol ma'asav. Ritzon Yirayav Yaseh, v'et Shabbatam yishma v'yoshiyim. Tehillat Adonai daber pi, v'yivarecho basar shem kodsho li'olam va'ed. V'anachnu nevarech ya, me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah. Page 100 at the top, Psalm 150. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Bikodsho. Hallelujah. Birkia uzo. Hallelujah. Biporota. Hallelujah. Kero gudlo. Hallelujah. Teka shofar. Hallelujah. Benevel bechinor. Hallelujah. Tohu macho. Hallelujah, b'milim Hallelujah, b'tziltzalei shama. Hallelujah, b'tziltzalei trua. Kol ha'neshama tehalel ya. Hallelujah. Kol ha'neshama tehalel ya. Hallelujah. Top of page 101, we'll continue. Nishmat. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu, baruch kol basar, tifarer v'turein zechacha malkeinu tamid, min olam v'ad olam ata el, ein lanu melech elata, Elohei achrishonim v'achronim, Elohai kol briot, Adon kol toledot, u'mechula barov hatishpachot. Amenaheg olamo b'chesed u'biratav b'rachamim v'Adonai lo yinem v'lo yishan ha'me'oher yishanim l'cha l'vacha anachnu modim ilufinu m'leishya kayam u'lshonenu chinach hamon gala v'sitatenu shevachim archem Kemerchavei rakia v'einenu mirhot kashemes v'yakareach v'yadenu. Ein אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו לברך את שמך על אחת ואלף אלפי אלפים וריבי רבות פעמים הטובות שעשית עם אבותינו ואמותינו ועמנו על כן איברים שבליקת בנו ברוח ונשמה שנפתחה באפינו כל כן פלך יודיך בכל לשון לך כשמה כל ברך לך תברא בכל קומה לפניך תשתח אמן. כאמור לדוד ברכי נפשי את אדוני וכל קרבי את שם קודשו. Top of 104. האל בתעצומות עוזך הגדול בכבוד שמך הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא, שוכן עד מהגרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב לנו צדיקים לאדוני לשרים בתהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובחסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יפרשים מלכנו בכל דור ודור. Top of page 105, please rise for Yishtabach. Yishtabach Shimcha Lad Malkeinu, Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol HaKadosh B'Shamayim U'Ba'aretz, Ki Lecha Na'er Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu V'Imoteihu, Shiru Shvacha Hallel V'Zimra, Ozu Memshalah, Netzach Gdula Ugevura, Teila V'Tiferet, Kedusha U'Malchut, Brachot V'Hodaot, Me'ata V'Adonam. Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Adol B'Tishbachot, El HaHodaot, Adon HaNiflaot, Abocher B'Shirei Zimra, Melech Elchei HaOlamim. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba, v'yalmad yivrachute v'yamlik malchute, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'hagala u'bizman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach Li'olam v'lo me'almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha rechu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram be'alma V'yimeru amen. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or v'choshech, oseh shalom u'brei hakol. You may be seated. Ameir la'aretz adorim aleha v'rachamim, u'ktuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit, ma'aravu ma'aseh Adonai kulam b'hokma atzita, v'la ha'aretz kinyinecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shelach ma'aseh yadecha v'yal mi'orei ur shasiti u'faru chasela, ur chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera li'oro, baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Page 112, top two lines. Ahava haraba havtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chemla gedola v'tegra, Chamalta aleinu. And let's read that paragraph together in English. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. On account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life, be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. V'ha'erenu b'toratecha, v'dahabek lebeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levaveinu li'ahava u'yira et shemecha, v'lo nevosh, v'lo nikalem, v'lo nikashel, לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה, 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 ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו כמיעוט לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת בקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע ואמת, להודות לך על ידך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ויעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטעו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת ויציב, אהוב וחביב ונורא, ואדיר וטוב ויפה הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. אמת אלוהי עולם מלכנו צור יעקב מגן, לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיים את, ודבריו חיים וקיימים ונאמנים ונחמדים לעד עולמי עולמים. ממצרים גלתנו אדוני אלוהינו מבית עבדים פדיתנו, על זאת שיבחו אהובים ורממו אל ונתנו ידידים, זמירות שירות ותשבחות ברכות והודעות למלך החי וקיים, רם ונישא גדול ונורא משפיל גאים ומקפיע שפלים מוציא אסירים ופודע ענבים ועוזר דלים ועונה לעמו בעת שעם. תהי לו ליל עליון ברוך ומבורך, משה בני סלחנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות ועושה פלא, שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובטחנו ממך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, God Yisrael. Page 124, please rise. The beginning of the Amidah. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Mekonei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Goel Ibnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Yezrat Sarah, Atagi Bor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayim Eitim Atarav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Umorit HaGashem, Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayim Eitim Berachamim Rabim, Zomech Noflim Merofei Cholim, Matir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha B'Giborot, Umidom Melach, Melech Mimidi, Umechayem, Umatzmiach Yeshua. The Ne'eman atah l'chayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei ha'meitim. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shmati shimo, tov yishmei marom, kakatu b'yad nevi'echa, v'karat zeh el zeh v'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzebahot, Melech kol haaretz, Kivodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch Kivod Adonai, Mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, Behu Yashminu, Berachamav Einei Kol Chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai Leolam, Elohai Tzion, Ledor Vador. Hallelujah. Ledor Vador Nagid Godlecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim Kedushacha Nahakdish, B'shivchacha Eloheinu, Mikinu lo yomush liolam ha'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. friend, let's continue on page 134, and let's read together this paragraph in English. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest, sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladness with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Page 139. How should we do this? I'll take the first one. You all respond, Modim anachnu lach. You take the second one, and then I'll respond. And we'll go through the end there. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim anachnu lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, and sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim anachnu lach. For a human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared.
Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom.
Modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach.
And together we pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha l'chaneh lahodot. Page 140, we'll close out with our prayer for peace. In the morning, it is Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Ein V'Chesed Merachamim, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael Amecha, Barucheinu Yotzreinu Kulanu Kechad Be'or Panecha. Kivor Panecha Nahatata Lahanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah Chaim V'ahavat Chesed Utzedaka Uvracha Rachamim V'chaim V'shalom V'rachamim V'chaim V'shalom V'tov be'enecha levarech et amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה ישלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. And jump ahead to 253 for one of our many prayers for healing. This one, the Misha Berach. Misha Berach Avotenu Bimotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yivarech Et Hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem L'achlimam, l'achrotam, l'achazikam, v'shlach lehem mehegra refuah shlema min hashamayim, refuah tanefesh, refuah guf, hashta b'galav bizman kariv, v'nomar, amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. You jump ahead to 258 and 259, prayers of our community. And Toby, how about the prayer for our congregation?
Source of well-being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us, love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Thanks, by the way. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy.
Baruch atah Adonai, sheltecha levacha b'yira na'avod. Joyful Amen. How about the prayer for our country?
O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit.
Amen. Shalom, shalom, Yerushalayim, Yishlayu, Havayich. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. Avinu Shabashamayim, Sur Yisrael v'Golo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reishit Smichat Gulatenu. Again, Aleha b'Yavrat Chastecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha v'Amitecha l'Rasheha, Sareha v'Yotzeha, V'Takneim Eitza Tova Milfanecha, V'Natata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'Simchat Olam Liyoshveha, V'Nomar,
Amen.
Amen. Dr. Ron, how about in the English, please?
O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there.
Amen. All right, friends. This week, it's the Shabbat before Purim, and it's known as Shabbat Zachor. And if we had a minyan, we would, and we're reading Torah, we would take out 2 Sifrei Torah, and we would read a special Maftir section regarding Amalek, and what Amalek did to us, and how we're never to forget that, and how we're to not only not forget it, but we're to blot out his name. And let's see how that works out for us, right? But this week has something very interesting that happens, and you can check it after we learn it, just to make sure. But you would have to do a lot of reading, but that's okay. You all love to read. And on Shabbat, what else do you have to do? All right, there you go. Right there. All right, this morning's parsha is Tetzaveh, and it begins with the verse at the top of our page. And it says, Va'ata tetzaveh et b'nei Yisrael, v'yichu alecha shemen zait zah kativ, v'me'or laha'alot ner tamid. And it's an interesting verse. It's Moshe's getting commanded to start building the Ner Tamid. But that's not what's so interesting. What's interesting is the fact that in this entire Parsha, Moshe is not called by name. And it's the only one in the entire Torah, it's in the book of, starting with the book of, that does not have his name at least once. All right. The only other time it doesn't happen is in the book of Deuteronomy, but Moses is not being spoken to there. He is doing the speaking. So he doesn't often call himself by name, but he will say that God called to Moshe, God said this, right? But it starts off with Ata Titzaveh. Medua lo ne'amar v'yidaber Adonai el Moshe Why doesn't it start off with the normal, how things normally kind of start in the Torah? Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe. God said to Moses. Ella, it starts with the Atah Titzaveh, and you shall command. Beli Haskarat Shem Moshe, without mentioning the name of Moshe. Uvechlal, Medua lo niskar shemo shel Moshe b'chol parashat va'ateh kol va'atah titzaveh. That's a typo there. All right. So, and he says, and furthermore, in the entire parsha atah titzaveh, Moshe's name is not mentioned at all. Ella al pi rov chol zayin adar. Yom Petirato Shel Moshe Rabbeinu B'Parashat Va'ata Tetzaveh. And the author here says, one of the answers is that the 7th of Adar, Moshe's yard site, occurs during the week that this parsha is read. And so today is what? The 5th of February? 5th of March?
8th of Adar.
Is today the 8th of February? Yeah. Yeah, Adar and February match up this year. And so we had his yard site yesterday, right? And so every year, by Parshat Tetzaveh, we know that it's Moshe's yard site. And so God knew that the Korei Hadorot Mirosh Yada Ki B'Zayin Adar Yistalek Moshe Rabbeinu V'al Kain Lo Nizkar Shemo B'Parashat Hazot. And this is the Korei Hadorot is another name for God, the caller or the namer of the generations. Knew ahead, as God would know, that Moshe would die during this week, and that's why his name is not mentioned in this parsha. And this comes to us from Hagra, and the Gra is Harav Eliyahu ben Shlomo Zalman. We also know him as the Gaon of Vilna. Right? Gra stands for Gaon Rabbeinu Eliyahu. Right? And just so no one can ever say, oh, Rabbi only gives Hasidic teachings. This is one of the greatest Litvaks who ever lived. As a matter of fact, when the Hasidim started to gain ground in Lithuania, the Gra was the first one to put them all into Cherem. He excommunicated them all, burned their books, forbid his followers from attending their services, hanging out with them, or anything. The Gaon of Vilna was a Lithuanian Talmudist, halachist, and Kabbalist. And he was a misnagid. A misnagid is the old pronunciation of a mitnagid, somebody who was against something. And he was a mitnagid against the Hasidim. Right? And so,
Which was something new at the time, right?
the Hasidism, yeah. These guys were boring. They just stayed in the.
You could call him conservative.
He and his students said, it's about the Talmud, it's about study, it's how much you study, not about anything else. And the Baal Shem Tov came and said, no. Studying is important, but it's about your relationship with God and how happy you can be with it. So while the Baal Shem Tov was out hugging trees and singing, the Litvaks were very, very upset. And they excommunicated them, all of them. Gaon means genius, and the Gra was, in fact, the genius. In terms of Talmud, Kabbalah, and Halacha, he was a prolific author, and he actually authored a mathematics textbook that is still used in some advanced mathematics courses at universities. He just did that on the side. He had, I think he had 7 or 8 kids. One of them died early, young, but they all lived to adulthood, and they were all very, very prolific. So he has thousands of descendants walking around today. And one of my teachers in rabbinical school is a direct descendant of the Gra. And, you know, when he announced that to us as, you know, rabbinical students, we were all mightily impressed. And he said, no, it's not that impressive. They were a prolific group and they like to have sex. And so that's how I got here. And like, well, that's how we all got here. But not all of us can say that we were related to the Gaon of Vilna, right? And so this is my hat tip to somebody who's not Hasidic, lest people say, all he ever goes is Hasidic writings, and they're boring.
Why would it be necessary to not mention Moshe at his yard sites? After all, this is usually the time that we name.
Yeah.
people.
Good point.
They had to find some reason, right? I mean, this is we don't read the text like this. You would read this in English and say, huh, yeah, okay, it's a boring parsha. It's talking about the Ner Tamid. It's talking about this. It's talking about that. And I bet none of you would notice the fact that Moshe's name is not mentioned at all. And so,
Yeah, I kind of like the joke, what was Moshe's last name? Lamore? Because it always says Dr. Lamore. Yeah. So I probably would have missed that.
so, right, but the Gra and other commentators, as I've said before, they do deep readings because they knew the text inside and out, backwards and forwards. And so they would notice very quickly that Moshe's name is not mentioned, at least at the beginning of the Parsha, right? Where God doesn't say something like, where the Torah doesn't say, Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, right? Right off the bat. And if you notice that that's not there, then if you're a close reader of the text, you go through and you say, well, I'll be. Moshe's name's not even mentioned once.
Is the fact that he died on the 7th of Adar in Devarim, or where do we get that date from?
Tradition.
Sort of like Christmas.
Oh, that's not very accurate.
Sort of like,
And I assume that also the Parsha is that week because of tradition, right?
well, this Parsha falls always around this time of the month of Adar.
I'm just saying,
Even if it's an extra month, it'll fall right before Purim. Right, and that's the point, is that it falls right before Purim. And so Moshe's yahrzeit is the 7th of Adar. Now, I mean, if that's tradition, we don't know, like we don't know where he's buried.
Unmarked grave.
Right, an unmarked grave at the top of a mountain.
can't go.
And so
Grave marker and say.
the idea is that they've done such the Gra and the rabbis of previous generations, not so much today, unless you get into the really Orthodox world, really Orthodox world. They just don't know the text as well as they did generations ago, because the Gra's dates were 1724 to 1797, right? So not 1720 to 1797. So it's 77 years. The Baal Shem Tov started Chassidut right around that time. And, the Gra didn't have television. He didn't have the internet. He didn't have Twitter. He didn't have Facebook, right? So what he had were texts, and he knew those texts backwards and forwards. And so this is one piece that I always like, this teaching of the Gra, because it's once you accept the fact that Moshe's yahrzeit is the 7th of Adar, and this always gets read on or around the 7th of Adar. Oh, okay, this is an interesting tidbit. Not everybody is so kind, and that's the second one here. And in terms of kindness, it's not as banal. Oh, that's Moshe's yard site. Okay, so that's why he's not mentioned in this one. And God knew that he was going to die on the 7th of Adar. So that's why it's not here. Moshe didn't know this because Moshe didn't know what day he was going to die. But God, put this in there so we would know. Okay, that's the Gra in a nutshell. Okay, so we have Nachal Kedumim. I could not find much on the Kadal Nachal Kedumim, so I just know that he's not Hasidic. Lo Hiskir Moshe Bezeh HaSeder. Right, Moshe is not recognized. Moshe is not mentioned in this Seder. This Seder or Sedra in a feminine noun means this Parsha. A Seder is the order that the Torah is read. Mash ein chan bechol hachumash. And this is the only one in the entire Chumash that doesn't mention him by name. She misha'a shenolad Moshe ein seder shelo huskar bo chutz mi Mishnah Torah. And so he says that this is the only parsha from the birth of Moshe that doesn't mention his name. And then he says michutz mi the Mishnah Torah. The Mishnah Torah, that's Maimonides' great work, but that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy means the second Torah, Mishneh Torah. And Deuteronomy means that in Greek as well, the second law. And so, and the reason he's not mentioned by name in that book is because traditionally he wrote it. And so he's not going to give his name. Right? So Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, every parsha except one has Moshe's name in it. And then the last book of the Torah, Moshe's name is there, but it's not as prevalent as the three other books.
So he wrote it, but God gave him the Torah on Sinai.
Go figure. Go figure. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a tradition, right? It's a tradition because we have this book that is a restatement of much of what transpired in Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, right? Although there are brand new laws that show up, most of the laws have what to do with once the land is settled. There's a lot of commandments regarding the land of Israel in the book of Deuteronomy, which led a lot of scholars to say, well, we like the idea that Moshe wrote this, but there's no way he could have, because these mitzvot would not have been something that he would have been aware of. Right? So in the book of Kings, Kings 1 or Kings 2, King Josiah, one of the good kings, decides he's going to clean out the temple because it was corrupt. They were taking money, and the money wasn't going to the upkeep of the temple. It was going into people's pockets. Think about that. No, but they found a scroll in one of the closets, and it turns out that it was the book of Deuteronomy.
These are historians, or this is in Kings?
Well, it's in Kings that they found this scroll.
Nice.
Historians and experts in biblical literature think that this is probably the book of Deuteronomy, or an early form of the book of Deuteronomy. And they think it might have been authored by Josiah
Himself?
himself, because there is a command for every king to write his own Sefer Torah. And so what this is the king condensing all the stuff that came in the Torah that he had and writes we don't know. I mean, it's a nice story, right? And because King Josiah was one of the great kings that we had, surrounded by a bunch of losers, right? And so we want to give him credit for any good thing that happened, right? So we find Moshe's name mentioned everywhere except that. And now he says, v'hata'am, and the reason. She'amar mecheni na mesifrecha asher katavta. Later on in Exodus, or not too far, it might even be this parsha. Moshe says to God, "Wipe me out from the book you are writing." Now, when we look at that, we say, "Wow, I mean, what bug bit Moshe?" I mean, like, you know, this is when God and Moshe are talking about the punishment for the golden calf. And Moshe, what was missing here is it's a longer section where Moshe says, "Listen, let them off the hook. They've already been punished, and if you're not going to let them off the hook, erase me from your book, right? Because I can't be part of you having this vendetta against Israel. Already been punished. They know they've done wrong, and if you're going to keep, kvetching about this, my word, not Moshe's word, but if you're going to keep on this, then just erase me because I can't be part of it." Now, when you have it in a context, that's not Moshe being cocky. That's Moshe saying, "Listen, we've done what you said. Let's move on." But they pull this line out, right? Because erase me from your book, wipe me out from your book, sounds Moshe like, ha. And so it continues because, right?
So what book are we talking about? I mean, I think of the book of life.
Well, he's talking about the Torah.
Okay.
And so what,
Which is, so what word is used in Hebrew for book?
Sefer,
Okay.
which is mecheni na, the na is please. So it's like, please wipe me out. May from Sifracha, your Sefer, Asher, that Katafta, that you are writing, or that you write, right? So now it's not, there are other teachings that follow this line that the Nachal is doing. And so one of the teachings says that God said, okay, but I'm just going to give you a taste. And so here's a parsha where you're not mentioned. How does it make you feel? Right? Because this is the only parsha that doesn't have Moshe's name. So the commentary is, well, God gave him a taste of it. Right? You don't want to have anything to do with this? Fine. Look, here's a ta titzaveh. Right? I can do it. I can do it. Now, how did this happen? This is just the luck of the draw. This is just the luck of the draw. They began this parsha a couple of verses earlier, Moshe's mentioned. They ended a couple of verses later, Moshe's mentioned, right? This is just how the parsha was divided. Totally luck.
So who made that decision? That's something that was made a long, long time ago, right?
It was made by the probably the rabbis in the Talmud started it. The Masoretes were probably the ones who made it happen.
Oh,
When was that?
1,800 years ago.
Long time ago. The Masoretes went up through the 9th century of the current era.
Okay.
So that's when they started the parsha throughout.
Well, no, I mean, but I could look that up. It's not something that's in my wheelhouse for memory.
Yeah.
When
That's okay.
there's a command that the Torah would get read in its entirety at certain points of the year. But later on, it got broken into this cycle. I'm trying.
It's not in the Talmud anywhere.
No, because they were really worried about prayer.
We'll look it up.
I'm certain that there will be something in the Talmud, but the Masoretes were the ones who went through and cleaned up the spelling problems and the missing letters or the extra letters or the wrong letters, and they were very big. They were very deep into that kind of stuff. I mean, I think some of the regular reading of the Torah, they were still working on that into the Middle Ages to get it to where we have it today. And not everybody's even on the same page in modern Judaism. In Israel, depending on how the months fall, there's a period of time where they have a different. They're a week or so. We're off by a week in the Ashkenaz or the outside of Israel. I can't remember what that is either today when that happens. But then you have in like more liberal Judaism, Reform, Reconstruction, and Conservative, you have what's called the triennial cycle, because those Jews are too busy on Shabbos to sit through an entire Torah reading. So we divide it into 3 sections, and it takes us 3 years to get through the entire Torah. Where in the Orthodox world, on Shabbos, you go to shul, and that's what you do, and so they get through it all in 1 year. So when we celebrate Simchat Torah, we shouldn't be except every 3 years, because we've not completed the entire Torah. We've completed a third. But, Western Jews, we've got to.
But you're doing the whole parsha here, so we can do it every year, right?
No, we don't do the whole parsha.
You do it,
I talk about the whole parsha.
so.
That's different than reading it. Okay, so he says that the kilalat hacham afilu al tanai ba, and that comes from a Torah commentator, a medieval Torah commentator called the Baal HaTorim, the master of the pillars. He says that the curse or the curse, meaning may something bad happen, of a wise person is of a hacham is fulfilled, even if it is said al tanai, even if it is not, even if it was made conditionally, right? Even if it wasn't meant to be taken seriously, right? Moshe really didn't say didn't mean erase me from your book in the way we're reading it here. It's God lighten up on Israel, or I'm not going to do this anymore, right? And so the Baal HaTorim says a righteous person, a wise person, even if they say something like that, right? Remove me from this, that comes to pass, right? Again, it's that idea of, if I don't get my way, I'm never going to step foot into the synagogue again. Bye. Right? That's what God's saying here, right? What Moshe is saying to God, erase me. God's saying, okay, you're not going to hold me hostage, is what God's saying, right? I understand what you're upset and that, but, choose your words better.
Sounds like a parent here. First, don't push me. And the
Well-
second is, go ahead. Try it.
Well, that's it, and then, and I've been preaching this since I'm a baby rabbi, that when people get angry and say things like, well, if I don't get what I want, I'm going to leave the synagogue. See ya. What do you mean?
But it's the curse of the righteous.
Not the curse is when you say something like, I swear to God, I'm never going to step foot in that synagogue again. And then there's a kiddush and you're the first in line, right? God doesn't take kindly to that. Moshe says, erase me from your book. God says, okay. You're not going to threaten me. You're not going to hold me hostage. I've got a plan. I can replace you.
God's very transactional here.
That's what God's were at that point. All right? Did your children ever say, I'm going to run away from home?
My sister did.
Your sister did? Did she run away?
Yeah, she actually opened the door.
And what did your parents do?
Went berserk.
You can run away, but don't cross these streets.
See, I got my dad was like, you want me to pack your bag?
Yeah.
And I did it enough once that he walked over to the closet, opened up, and there was a bag packed for me. He's like, here. You call their bluff, right? Because parents don't want to be held hostage by petulant children who are having a fit, right? God doesn't want to be held hostage to Moshe, who's having a bit of a fit, right? And so we shouldn't be held hostage to people, adults, who like to pitch fits, right? And so God says, okay, right? But the Baal HaTurim is saying, you got to be careful what you say. Because even if you are doing it and you don't mean it to be taken seriously or conditionally or anything like that, God's listening and it might just happen. And so we have this parsha here that has brought up a lot of conversation simply because Moshe said, erase me from your book. And God says, okay. And so we have this parsha out of all the parshiot, the only one that doesn't mention his name. Luck of the draw, luck of the editor, right? But again, whether or not you buy this whole cloth, when I bring these teachings in, I try to bring them in to show you the depth of thought that these rabbis had, because they wanted it to remain, they wanted the Torah to remain relevant to us. And so they bring in things that reflect on us. How many of us have said something that, you know, if we carried through on it, it might have detrimental effects on our lives.
Okay.
Right? And so this is what the Nachal Kedumim is saying. It's like, look, Moshe let something slip. He was frustrated. He was frustrated not only with the children of Israel because they had the thing with the Maaseh Egel, they had the thing with the golden calf. Then they, and then God punishes them. And now God's dumping it on me because of their behavior. And Moshe says, look, enough. And God says, all right, you're not up for the job. I'll show you what it means not to be in my book. And there is a parsha. And Moshe obviously cleaned his act up because he's mentioned in the rest of the Torah. And so, and now it gets Zeh Haremez. And it hints at this Ata Titzaveh et Bnei Yisrael vayichu alecha. Takes the first part of our verse, where it is, and you will command Bnei Yisrael that they take you. Now, that they take you is a literal translation, if you translated it word for word, right? But when we translate it to make sense, that they bring to you or that they take for you, right? It's talking about bringing the stuff together to make the Ner Tamid, right? But it could be read as that they take you. What does that mean? Bnei Yisrael yichu otcha ledugma. That the children of Israel look to you as an example. They are watching your behavior. And when you do something, when you say something, when you behave in a certain way, they're going to assume that that way of behaving is in fact kosher. Right? And so they're taking you as an example. They will know that you have said, erase me from your book. And then they'll take that as a way, well, oh, if I'm not going to get my way or if I'm a little frustrated, I'll talk to God this way. I'll say, well, God, just erase me from your plans. I don't want to do this. Take me back to Egypt. Right? And so that because they're looking at him as an example, he has to be careful. She'im mit kavnim afilu latova. Even if a person has good intentions, right? Asur lahotzi shemetz kilala min hapeh. Even if your intention is good, if you say you're going to say something, you're going to curse something, like Moshe said, right? Erase me from your book if you're going to keep piling on Bnei Yisrael. We've already punished them. His intentions were good, to get God to back off the punishing of Israel. But when he said, erase me from your book, even though the intentions were good, God said, okay, I'll do that, because when this gets out, then the children of Israel are going to all say, oh, erase us from your book. We don't want to be part of this.
This is like the old Chinese curse.
May you live in interesting times.
No, may all your wishes come true.
There you go.
Uh,
There you go. Because we sometimes forget, or we often forget, that sometimes we wish for things that are not so kosher, that are not so good. And by kosher, I mean, I just wish you would drop dead. Right? That's a wish. Right? May all your wishes come true. Oh, I never said that somebody should drop dead.
That's not what I meant.
Oh, let's play the tape again. Oh, see, Judd, you were there, and Dr. Ron was annoying you, and you silently wish, oh, I wish your tongue would fall out, and walk across the room and slap you. Right.
You should lose every tooth in your mouth except one.
And it should have a toothache. You should have a room. You should have a house with 1,000 rooms, and each with a bed, and you should toss and turn from each bed all night. May you grow like an onion with your head in the ground and your feet in the air.
Is that why, with the expression swear to God is not good to say at all?
No, it's not, because when you say I swear to God, you're invoking God's name as a character witness.
Mm.
Right? This comes into when we talk about vows, right? And a neder, right? And this is why we have kol nidre, all vows. Nidre in Aramaic is Aramaic for nedarim, for vows, VOWS. And so anytime we say we make a promise to God or we invoke God's name, we're on the hook for that.
I swear to God, or so help me God.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you have to be very.
Right? I swear to God, Miranda, I did what you asked me to do. But I'm
no.
swearing to God that I did,
Yes,
and I'm calling God as a character witness.
yes.
And now I've got God on the hook for something that I didn't do, that I said I would do, but I invoked God's name.
Oh, when they're in court and they I don't even know if they use the Bible anymore, and they say swear to God, and
No.
they're not exactly telling the truth.
That's a problem.
That's the point.
That's right. So, when you say, I swear to God, I'm not going to step foot in that synagogue, and then there's a kiddush, and you're up there for your 5th plate, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but didn't you say you weren't coming back?
No.
Oh, I didn't mean it.
Mm.
Oh, but you invoked God's name, and right. So that's the point. Moshe is not
What about when you're venting to God, like you have no one else to talk to?
Oh, you can vent to God as long as nobody else hears you say, I swear to you.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, you can vent to God. God has big shoulders,
Okay.
although God doesn't have shoulders. But if God had shoulders, they would be big.
Like you're walking outside and you're angry and you're venting to him, not being mad at him, but angry at the whatever.
That's Rabbi Nachman of Breslov's famous Sipodadut.
Mhm.
Go out and talk to God out in the field by yourself.
So he could be your counselor.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And Rabbi Nachman would always say, see, I can't keep the Hasidim away. I mean, we're up to our elbows in Misnagdim today, and I gotta bring the Chasids in. Rabbi Nachman says, go out in the field and talk to God as if God's your best friend.
Oh,
But be careful. Starts
be
talking to
careful. Be
Yeah.
careful.
If God starts talking back,
you.
then we're in trouble.
I like it though. I think it was a couple of weeks ago when you mentioned to be present in the moment, like not just to be in a place, but present. And there was something I saw or read or something that said, okay, there was a person that came to synagogue, but he was thinking about fishing.
Yeah.
And then he went fishing and thought about God. So which one was right? I would say the one that actually went fishing and was talking to God.
Yeah.
And he didn't have your
It's
mind.
funny, this week I was on Amazon for something, and I was looking at something, and there came, there was a coin, but the size of a coin. Well, actually, I have one in my pocket.
It's magic.
Yeah.
No, this one is Memento Mori, right? Be aware of death,
Ah.
right? Because it says you could leave life right now, right? And the point of this is that you take it out and you look at it and you realize that whatever is bothering you or whatever, is this the last thought you want to have? Is this right? So, I mean, I have a number of these, and this one is just the one that I have today. I ordered one that says, "Be here now."
That's from last week.
That was from last week, or 2 weeks, a couple of weeks ago, right? Be here now, right? And I'm gonna switch these out, because I think memento mori is fine,
What
but
does it say on the other side?
you could leave life right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's meant to
Yeah.
kind of jar you a little bit,
Right.
right? But the idea of the be here now,
Be here now, I like that.
that one I liked, and I got it. I ordered it. I mean, it's like Jeff Bezos, now has $12 of money, more of my money, but because I like that be here now. That's the whole Moshe thing, right? And so, be careful what we say.
Lesson here for us is that we should consider our actions against being an example for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even, and it's this all Tanai that always threw me. All Tanai means you weren't being serious about it, right? All Tanai means conditionally, right? You didn't mean it in all cases, right? But the idea is there's no ego for Moshe here, right? Sometimes we read when Moshe's upset or something that it's ego, and we could see that because all we have is Mecheni na mesifrecha asher katavta, right? If we just have that, remove me please from your book that you are writing, that there could be ego in there, right? But if we have the rest of the context, now the rabbis have done this forever. Take verses out of context to make a point, right? The context is, as I mentioned a number of times today, Moshe is telling God, let's back off a little bit from Israel. They've been punished. And if you're going to keep this up, take me out of this, right? Now you can say, well, that's ego. I don't think it's ego. I think it's Moshe saying, look, these are my people. And if you're going to keep harassing them, I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to they've been punished, let it go. And so there's no ego here. Moshe misspeaks a little bit, right? And the Gra is, he's aware of these verses, but he sees it only as, God was giving us a hint at Moshe's yahrzeit.
Moshe wasn't really misspeaking here.
Impulsive.
Moshe meant what he was saying. I mean,
He was impulsive, right, with his words
I
and
like
his
that.
actions too. Didn't he
Yeah.
like strike the rock and then?
That's much later.
Okay.
That's much later that he gets in trouble.
Yeah.
But right now, he's defending Israel.
Mhm.
he's talking back to God, just like Abraham did.
Yes,
Probably,
but when Abraham did it, there was some respect.
Yeah.
Moshe says, please, okay, right? Remove me, please, from your book.
He's saying, if this is what you want to do, I don't want to be a part of it. Well,
But when the leader,
that's beautiful Judaism as far as I'm
that
concerned.
is, but it doesn't make for a great teaching if you're going to leave it in that context.
But it's also the problem, the threat, like, there's other places, like
Just-
you're saying.
I'm gonna see, Jessica, would you, please, because it'll take me 10 minutes to walk back there. A little red chumash, bottom shelf, little red paperback.
Bottom, this is kind of.
That's it.
Okay.
It's a little red chumash, and it's a paperback. Thank you very much. Again, I'm being lazy. I'm sorry.
Is the
No,
problem
it's okay.
the threat versus the request? Like, we have other places like Abraham or the daughters of Zelophehad saying, hey, this isn't fair, could we adjust this? Instead of,
Well, but
you better adjust this.
the daughters of Zelophehad come at the end of 5 parshiot in which we're shown examples of bad speech all the way through, and then we get to them, and they must have learned the lessons, right? Because we have Parsha Shlach Lecha, where the spies come back and give a half-baked story, half-truths. Then we have, well, we start with Moshe, Miriam and Aaron talking smack about Moshe. Can you believe that he married a Cushite? Right? Can you imagine that he married a black woman? Oh, good Lord, you know? That's what, you know, and they didn't think anybody was listening, and God was listening. Then we have Korach, and then there's another one that comes by. And then we have the daughters of Zelophehad, which wraps it up very nicely. And so here, you know, we could argue all day that Moshe is good, he's not so good. But here's the context of the story. It's in next week's Parsha. The Parshat Kitisa. And so next day, Moshe said to the people, you have been guilty of a great sin. Yet I will now go up to the Lord. Perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sin. Right? You're talking about the golden calf. Moshe went back to the Lord and said, alas, this people is guilty of a great sin, making for themselves a god of gold. Now, if you will forgive them their sin, well and good. But if not, erase me from the record which you have written. Right? Forgive them, or I'm done. Right? And so that's where the context is here. It's not so much it's what he said, how he said it as well, right? Erase me from your book.
Wasn't a negotiation like,
How long was he gone when they were making the,
40 days.
oh yeah, that's a long time.
Well, for them it was, but you know, and the idea is, you know, what the Nachal Kedumim is getting, be careful, how you behave, especially if you're in a leadership position. Because people look to you and say, well, if he could do that, I could do that. Or,
And you lose 1 week.
and you lose, you know, which, you know, again, right? Moshe says it next week, right? So, you know, it's funny, if you want to believe that the Torah was written by God, so then the week before he says it, Moshe gets a little text, like, where's my name? And then God says, oh, wait, read further, because you said this, right? Again, my point is, you don't have to like the teachings, but I want them to resonate with you in a way that gives you an idea of how people read these texts, right? Something that we would not have noticed, they noticed, and they wanted to find meaning in it, a lesson in it. The Gra, you know, he's a nice guy in this case. You know, Moshe wasn't a chassid, so he could say, oh, it's just, you know, we're going to remember that Moshe died, and you know, that's why his name's not mentioned. The Nachal, a little bit, you know, leadership needs to pay attention to what it's doing because they set the example, right? So again, you know, when people say, oh, if I don't get my way, I'm going to leave the synagogue. And then everybody bends over backwards and says, well, oh, of course you'll get your way. What that means is the people who are watching it, they know now that they can get their way. All they have to do is say, I'm going to leave.
Where do you get the power to excommunicate? And what does that mean?
You don't, no. I mean, I have power to excommunicate people, but but it's for very egregious kinds of things. If somebody says, if I don't get my way, I'm going to go, the community says, well, we'll miss your membership.
So
You're always welcome to come back.
the excommunication is just from a local group?
I mean, when you talk excommunication, right,
Spinoza, for example, was excommunicated.
Yes, and it was,
so were the Hasidim, apparently, by the Gra.
yes.
So what does that mean?
That means that those people are cut off from the tradition as it would have been put out by the Gra. They would not have been given any Torah aliyahs. They would have not been recognized as in counting towards a minyan. Now that's an extreme piece, but they would have no. They would be ignored, basically.
But they could have their own,
They could have their own, yeah.
and that could be accepted as
Not by-
eventually as a mainstream of Judaism.
It could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will be. Right? I mean, I had one of my teachers put his board president into cherem, excommunicated his board president because his board president got out of line and made personal attacks during a board meeting onto my teacher, the rabbi. And the rabbi said, "That's it. You're done. You're gone." Now, that doesn't mean that he was not allowed into the shul. It means he was no longer a member, which meant that he had no rights, privileges, or honors. He had no vote. He was no longer the board president. He could not have an aliyah, even if it was, his 67th grandson's bris, and he was alive for all 60. Right? Nope, no honors until he apologized. Right? People, it happens in the Orthodox world all the time. People get put in the cherem. Usually, it's in a local kind of thing. Spinoza, was a big deal because he was a well-known Jew that crossed the line. The Hasidim, that was a big thing with the Gra because he's cutting off an entire population of Jews.
Group. I'm sorry.
Okay, so, but when somebody says, "I'm going to leave," the community can say, "Okay, we're here for you. Try it out there. Go to another synagogue." Oh, there are no other synagogues. No, and then people realize very quickly that you can't make those kinds of threats, that you're not going to get your way. Right? And, I've seen synagogues, not that I've been affiliated with, but other synagogues that get torn apart by people who say, "Well, if you don't let me do this, I'm going to go." And then they bend over backwards to keep that one person. And then the next week you have 15 other people coming up making demands that the synagogue can't do. And then they say, "Well, we'll leave." Now you have 15 people leaving instead of just one. And that's what happens. Right? So the more you give into, "Well, I'll leave." When I said to my dad many times, "I'm going to run away," Dad said, "Well, don't let the door hit you on the way out. We'll be here, but if you don't want to be part of us, we wish you well." Any other comments, questions, Ed?
Oh, just back to the introduction to this. It made me realize that so my people are 1900 or so from Lithuania area.
The Litvak.
And my grandparents and great-grandparents all said, "Well, we're running away from the czars." I have no knowledge at all what life was like, what the history, and you're mentioning interesting stuff. So maybe you could refer me to stuff to read about what life and history was like living back in that area. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I just have no idea. You mentioned Vilna. I kind of pictured them as in segregated shtetls, and Vilna's is
Vilna's a huge city.
I just like to know about that.
Yeah.
So maybe you could help me find some reading.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about Lithuania,
Lithuania
Vilnius.
area, it was.
Vilnius was like often called the Jerusalem of Europe. That was where a lot of learning, that was where a lot of yeshivot were, that was where a lot of deep Talmudic study took place. The movie Yentl, that was Litvish. That was a Litvak community, right? But for some reason, Vilnius became this center for Jewish learning, right? When you're thinking about, and parts of Lithuania, there were shtetls, right? But Vilnius was where right? Poland had a lot of shtetls, right? And that's why in Lithuania, Hasidim doesn't catch on early on, because you had people like the Gra, and you had this already centralized way of Jewish learning. Okay? The reason it caught on in Poland is because they didn't have those centers, and it was a kind of like a populist movement, meaning in Lithuania, this is what it meant to be a good Jew. You went to the study hall and you studied all day, and if you couldn't do that, if you weren't smart enough, if you didn't have the skills for that, you donated money to enable other people who could to do that. And so they would spend all day in yeshiva learning and all that. Poland, they didn't have it that way. And so it was a very, very backwoods kind of Judaism. And the Hasidic movement caught on there because the Baal Shem Tov said, you don't have to sit in the study hall all day. It doesn't matter how much Gemara you learn, but what's your relationship with the Eibishter? What's your relationship with God? And when you pray, do you pray with fervor, or do you just go through the words because you've memorized them, right? And so it was this almost like a revivalist kind of movement that caught on in these shtetl and these places that were outside the main kinds of cities, because the Jews were like, wow, I mean, I could be a good Jew and not study Talmud, but if I pray, or if I sing, if I go out into nature and talk to God, that's like, yeah. A famous Baal Shem Tov story. The Litvaks are known for their prodigious memories and their ways of studying, right? And so you could put a pin through a page of Talmud, and there are men, one of my teachers was one of these people, that if you put it down and it's in the middle of a page, some random tractate, they could tell you every letter that pin is going to pierce as it goes through, right? How well do you have to know a text to be able to do that, right? And so they had tractates in their heads, right? Story has a famous story about the Baal Shem Tov. He's on a ship and he gets shipwrecked on an island with one of his followers. And the Baal Shem Tov loses his memory because he knows the way to get God to remove them from the island, but he can't remember. He can't remember. And he's with a student who is not one of the brightest bulbs in the box. And he's the students, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the Baal Shem Tov's, let me think. And the Baal Shem Tov says to the guy, do you remember the Aleph Bet? Do you at least know the Aleph Bet? The guy says, yes, I know the Aleph Bet. And he starts to recite it. And the Baal Shem Tov says, keep doing it. Keep doing it. You recite the letters, and God can rearrange them into what he needs. No? You don't get it? No, the Baal Shem Tov could not remember. But his student remembered the Aleph Bet. And the Baal Shem Tov says, just keep reciting the Aleph Bet, and God will rearrange the letters as God needs them. I always liked it.
One more quick thing. So my grandfather came over. He was in yeshiva, and so my dad's. They were totally non-religious family, and they didn't have any money. But somehow he got to college and became a scientist. So that's where I got.
Your dad or your grandfather?
No, my grandfather somehow.
Got your dad to college.
Oh yeah, but he got himself to college.
Oh,
somehow.
okay.
But the family was totally non-religious as they grew up in America. Yet he was from yeshiva. So,
Yeah.
anyway, I want to learn more about it.
When people came over There's stories about the boats coming from Eastern Europe and the Jewish man right before they entered into New York Harbor, and they would shave their beards and payas and drop their tefillin over the side of the ship because they were running not just from the czar, but from the thumb of the rabbis.
Interesting.
And so that's why a lot of them became secular
Yeah.
when they came. The movie Hester Street came out in the 70s, early 80s, stars Carol Kane, comedic actress, but it's a very serious role for her, where she plays a woman whose husband comes to America, and he left the Europe from guy, and when she gets to America, he's changed. He's clean shaven, he's eating trafe, he's all of that, and she can't make that. She can't do that because she's from a Madel, right? And so they wind up having to get a divorce, and that's a big part of the story. It's an amazing movie. It's a great movie, but that hints at why a lot of the Orthodox Jews who came over from Europe wound up being secular Jews. They were running away not only from the anti-Semitism, but they were running away from the dictatorship of the rabbis.
It's interesting to understand history.
It is. We Jews have a tremendous history. We often look at like what has been done to us, but we often forget what we have done to ourselves. So.
It's not about the parsha, but it's about the date. I never knew the exact week that my grandmother passed away. Now I know because my cousin told me she passed away on Moses' yard site. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here it is in writing. So
The 7th of Adar.
It's not on the yard site, so if we could just mention her too, I'll let you know her name.
That's great.
Okay. All right. Let's start concluding on page 282. Please rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gdula liotzer b'shit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot hadama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ ומשה בקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו עינות Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato Kakatu B'Torato Yadata Hayom V'Hashevota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim B'Shamayim Mimal Yoharetz V'Tachat Eino. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch v'yolam v'oed v'nehemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad. You may be seated. This week we observed the following yard sites: Ruth Ann Fetter Goldsmith, Charles and Norma's daughter; Hy Weed, father of Adam and Sarah; Carol Katz, Jerry's wife, mother of Myron, Mike, Steve, and Randy; Bernard Smith, Josie's husband, father of Mark, Gabe, Jeff, and Stephen; Mendel Weiss, Dee Dee Muffson's father; Noah Fetter, Lil's husband, father of Marvin and David; Max Kahn, Helga Thorne's father. Irvin J. Miller, Ed Yellen's cousin. George Lewin, relative of Milford Schneiderman. Florence Rosenstein Moll, Natalie Schneiderman's mother. Rebecca Cantor, mother of Jerry. Esther and Julia, maternal grandmother of Pauline Kaplan and her siblings Jean, Norton, and Sam. Isidore Kuntz, father of Morris, grandfather of Richard and Linda. Etta Angel Kaplan, Henry and Charlotte's daughter.
Irene Sidbone Shiraki, maternal grandmother.
Irene Sidbone Shiraki,
Shiraki.
Miranda's maternal grandmother. Frances Fish Tompkins, Lawrence's mother. Esther Freeman, Dave's wife. Robbie and Bruce's mother, Mark Brodhoff's aunt. Esther Uslin, Mark's mother. Harold Dutch Miller, Mark Miller's father. Esther Sacherman, Maxine Frankel's sister. Dorothy Penn, Ina Hamill's mother. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us all. And may they all rest in peace. Warner's Cottage, page 294. Yit Gadol, Vit Gadash, Shmei Rabbah, V'alma Divrach Pirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chaye Chon, V'yomei Chon, V'chaye D'chol Beit Yisrael, V'agalah V'zman Kariv, V'yimru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Mivorach, Le'olam, Olamei Almaya. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit alev, v'yit alam, shmei d'kudusha, b'richu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiram be'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Just a couple of quick announcements. Services tomorrow morning at 9, and then my classes, Hebrew at 1 and Siddur at 2. This week we have a Board of Trustees meeting Tuesday evening. I'm not 100% sure of the time. I want to say 6, but check your emails and you'll have that. Purim is coming up. I don't know about the spiel because we don't have enough people signed up yet. So, but we will have something. If we can't have the spiel, we'll have something just as fun. Purim will be this Thursday evening. And then back for services next Friday night, next Shabbat morning, and next Sunday. Don't forget this coming morning in the AM, our clocks go ahead, so we lose that hour of sleep. So that those of you who like sunlight can have an extra hour of sunlight, driving us vampires and werewolves back into the shadows. But that's okay. But that's tonight at 2 a.m. So don't forget that. And then the raffle will be coming up. And if you're selling, sell. And if you're buying, buy. Or if you want to do both, buy and sell. But that'll be coming up at the end of April. And I think that is it. So we'll start closing out with Ein Keloheinu on page 200. It's right where I left it. 322. And then a bit of Kiddush. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadoneinu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kamoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu shektiru avotenu lefanecha ketoret hasamim. Veshamru bnei Yisrael et haShabbat la'asot et haShabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ.
בני ישראל
Shabbat, two scrolls. לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Next verse.
וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. שבת ויהי נפש. שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. I like that verse so much. It was so nice I had to do it twice. זכור את יום השבת לקדשו, שש ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך. ביום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך לא תעשה כל מלאכה. אתה ובנך ביתך עבדך ואמתך וגרך אשר בשעריך. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים ואת כל אשר בם. וינח ביום השביעי, על כן בירך אדוני את יום השבת. ויקדשהו ספרי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. Nothing better on a Shabbat morning. All right, let's see who says good morning or hello or on the intertubes.
I guess your mom.
Yes. There's Donna Wilson. Hi, Donna. Shabbat Shalom and thank you. Same to you. And there's Mom. Shabbat Shalom to all from Rabbi's Mom and Cliff from very chilly PA. Wishing all a peaceful weekend and a great week ahead. Stay dry, warm, and safe. Hello to all our services today. Well, thanks, Mom and Cliff. And back at you. Stay warm, dry, and safe. The sun seems to be peeking out here, so maybe today it'll clear up a little bit. Lots going on, so please come in and visit us and be with us. Want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos, and please be careful out there.
Monday, I'm close